Surviving Reality contains explicit content full of snark and sarcasm that may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Surviving Reality.
I'm Corey.
And I am Carly, and I am beyond excited to be here today talking about the beginning of the Traitors US Season 3.
So they dropped episodes 1 through 3, which I feel like was actually a little bit too much almost to start.
It wasn't if you're just binge watching, it was a lot for us to take in given we're going to talk about it.
I think that might be the bigger issue that I was having with this. But yeah, I would love to have this many episodes. I don't think they even needed all 3 to get you roped in and invested if you're watching this, though.
I feel like the first episode, they could have ended it there, and it was enough to get you to want to come back the next week.
I feel like they wanted to have you see at least one person get eliminated and stuff. And I feel like if you're new to the show or if you haven't watched the show, you need to see at least a few of the components that they're talking about in action in order to get really invested, fully invested right out the gate.
I think that's a good point because I was very confused when we watched The Traitors for the first time. First of all, thank you to all of you out there who told us we had to watch this show because we were sleeping on it. And then we got very into it sometime last year and binged multiple versions of it, waiting for the new US season to come out, which was season 2 with Phaedra.
I believe it was, we were recapping one of the episodes of season 2. And then, so we had watched everything that was available for season 2 at that point. And in that week span that we were waiting for the next episode to come out in season 2, we went back and watched all of season 1 of the US version. And then I think we watched the UK version, a couple of seasons of that. We burned through several seasons while we were waiting for the next episode to come out of the US version last season.
We watched a lot. I gotta say, we are professional Traitor watchers?
Well, I think it's interesting because a lot of it takes place in the same location, the same locale, even if it's the different versions of the Traitors.
And sometimes the challenges are similar from different iterations of the show, but they always do a great job of adding in new twists every season.
They mix it up and it's different. So even though you watched that season of Traitors Season 1 US version, it is completely different watching the season 1 UK version. Even though some of the challenges are the same, the game is structured very differently depending on what's going on.
And the people who play the game make the game because there's so much psychology and groupthink involved. What was the name of, was it a game or whatever you were telling me this was like when we first tried to watch the show and I was completely lost?
Why am I...
Wolves and something?
I was thinking Wolfman, but that's not the game. That's that new movie that's coming out. There's the game where it's, the villagers and the werewolf. I think it's werewolf. Is that just what it's called?
I think that's what it was.
There's other iterations or things that it's been referred to as mafia and different things like that, but we all know the mafia doesn't exist, so don't worry about that.
Or it does, according to this episode with Dorinda.
Oh, Dorinda. Well, yeah, I think that's a good place to start. What were your thoughts going into season 3, based on everything that we know, the vast knowledge that we have, and the mixology of different game styles and types and twists and turns that they've thrown at us through all these different versions? Where did you think they were going from picking the Traitors?
Well, the first thing I thought was they can't have a housewife be a traitor because Phaedra was such a good traitor, and the housewives... I guess a good place to also back up to is they kind of pick from the same reality TV pools every time that they cast this show.
Just in general for the US version, because the US version is all celebrities and there's not really too many just regular Joes.
There's a couple of randos who get thrown in here and there.
Who is Gabby?
She's from The Bachelorette.
Okay.
No, our rando this season is Dylan Efron.
Dylan Efron.
Also known as brother of Zac Efron.
And Ivar, who I always want to call Ivan, but it's not Ivan.
It's Ivar.
It's Ivar.
Mountbatten? Wow.
Oh, I don't know.
No one knows because no one ever says the royal family's last name.
You don't have to say their last name. You just say the royal family.
He does because he's Ivar.
I guess, yeah. You can get mixed up pretty easily here. So it's from the pools of people. Yeah, I think Phaedra was too much of a standout. She was a big conversation piece of being an unexpected traitor who did very well. So now people are kind of on the lookout for a housewife who is able to play this game ruthlessly.
But that's where my mind went, was if I'm entering the castle, everyone is going to suspect that they're going to pick a housewife. And either they're going to do that thinking the group will... There's either two schools of thought. Either you're going to assume that there's one that's in the group of traitors, or you're going to say that's too obvious. They wouldn't do that. And so then they would throw one in. Did that make sense?
Well, you are going to find out very quickly that our train of thought when it comes to the traitors is a lot of this or that. And then there are subset reactions that happen where then there is more this or that, where it kind of compounds because we both have anxiety programmed brains. And we kind of run these scenarios.
And we distrust people.
This is a regular occurrence for us in a lot of regular everyday decision making that happens here too. So the train of thought, it's a lot to jump on board. But once you get up to speed with us, I think you'll be right there along with us for the ride.
The entire concept of the game is that they bring this group of reality TV stars, celebrities, whoever, to a castle in the Highlands in Scotland. And we have Alan Cumming, who is here to be our flamboyant host, who just wears fabulous outfits. Should I call them costumes? I know Bronwyn Newport would take issue with that.
Mary Cosby might back you up on that, though.
But he's here to add some drama and to guide us through episode by episode.
I would love to be a host of this. This would be such a fun show to be a host because it is overly dramatic, and Alan Cummings does a good job with taking that to almost a campy spot, but keeping it serious too.
It's campy.
Yeah.
Which is what makes it fun. And everyone else is campy. It's gotten more campy as the seasons have gone on with the clothing.
Cheek. I think it's tongue in cheek. And then it has become sort of a murder mystery. Everyone plays kind of a character, an elevated version of themselves with
like they're in Clue.
Hats and caps and
everybody's dressed like they're trying to outdress Alan or something at this point, especially the housewives.
He sets the bar very high, though, yes.
So we all come into this house, and nobody is going to know whether they're in one of two groups at first. You're either going to be chosen to be a faithful, which means you are trying to find the traitors in the game, or you're going to be selected to be one of the very few people who are playing as a traitor.
So of the 20 people in the house, there's maybe 3 who are traitors amongst them, pretending to be faithfuls. And the whole concept of the game is if a traitor makes it to the end of the game, they win the money, the prize money of $250,000. If it's only faithfuls who remain at the end of the game, then they win and share the prize money. I did like the twist that they added for this season, which is when you get to the finals now, people don't announce whether they're faithful or traitors in the end game stages, which I feel like that always set it up where the traitors had to turn on each other at some point. This makes it where you don't really have to.
Well, in that they would say they're still a traitor in the game. Alan would tell them that they're still a traitor in the game.
Sometimes. Or people would deduce, oh, that person was a traitor, then there can't be anybody else. I think everybody else is faithful here. And then there was still one extra traitor because they had recruited someone along the way, or somebody flipped or turned, or they added in. So it kind of changes the dynamic where if you don't know who you're removing at the end of the game, you really have no idea how many traitors are left, how many traitors were in here to begin with when you got to the finals.
It's going to make it a lot harder.
It's going to make it a lot harder, and I like that it doesn't put the traitors in the position where they have to turn, because at some point you have to give your own traitors up to the faithfuls, because the faithfuls need to find some traitors to think that there are no more traitors left.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like that twist where that's going to make it a little bit more complicated towards the end game here, but we'll see how that plays out.
The first exciting thing we see when we get to the castle is that is it exciting or terrifying? There's a group of masked figures standing behind Alan.
At first, the few that they drove by, I thought those were just like scarecrows that were just set up and stuff. No, I think those were people who were actually in the costumes, because once they got a bunch of people up to the house, those were actual people in the costumes that were walking around behind them and moving through
It never occurred to me that those
the
were
landscape.
scarecrows.
No, you didn't. The one that they were driving by at, I don't know, 40 kilometers per hour or something. I don't know. What does that translate to? 80 kilometers per hour?
I have no idea. Everyone's getting out of the cars. They're kind of looking to see who is on this season. And right off the bat, we have a couple of people who recognize each other, but not in a good way. We have Brittany and Danielle from Big Brother, who have a past history.
Because I think it was Brittany had forced Danielle out of the game at one point in Big Brother.
No idea.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I think they explained. Anyway, there's like bad blood between them. That's going to happen a lot on this show because there are people who have played in competition games and they have had to betray each other. And these are often people who have gotten very, very far in these games.
The other twist is these are also sometimes the only other people that they know in the house coming in. So the person that you trust the least is also the only person that you kind of trust because you have an existing relationship with
They're
them.
at least familiar to you.
So that's where it gets extra dangerous because then we have the different cliques. We have the housewives who are in a category there. We have the Big Brother folks who are in their own little group. We have the Survivor bunch, and that's where Carolyn and Tony and Jeremy are kind of grouping up a little bit here as they're first arriving.
I don't know if they're grouping up. They looked at Tony and they were like, oh, the only person who could be worse than seeing Tony from Survivor would be seeing Boston Rob. So right off the bat,
I wouldn't wish that on anyone, huh?
Not a great review. They're not really sure if they're going to want to team up with him or not. And their worst dreams come true when Alan asks the figures behind them to all leave, to disperse. And for some reason, one of them doesn't leave. He keeps standing there.
So he calls him over, and then this is the first interesting gambit that we have. This is not unusual, though, for the Traitors to throw a curveball right out the gate. Because I think in one of the UK versions, they had someone leave the game.
Oh, yeah. They told them if you think put yourselves in order, rank yourselves, standing from most likely to win the game to least likely. And then the person who said they were least likely to win the game got eliminated.
They kicked him out right there. They didn't even step foot in the house. So that was like, whoa, it really sets the tone. But then it made me think too, because spoiler alert for that season, that person does re-enter the game later on. So most of the time, if something like this is taking place, and this is what Alan is explaining as part of this too, there are consequences. There are repercussions for the decisions that happen. These are difficult decisions that come up, and then based on that decision, it will affect how the game plays out.
Because we quickly find out this is not just someone from central casting wearing a mask.
Who forgot to turn their hearing aid on and didn't.
It's Meredith Marks.
It's Meredith Marks. She didn't know that she was supposed to leave.
Can I tell you how much I want Meredith Marks and Heather Gay to be on a season of The Traitors?
I feel like, well, because I was going to say Mary Cosby, but Mary Cosby would be first out. She is just too much to handle in a roundtable discussion.
I don't think she would say anything. I think she'd play like Kate Chastain.
But then there would be one roundtable where she would have some stuff to say, and she would go way too hard, and people would be like, I don't like that. So
I just think Meredith would be suspicious of everyone, and Heather would be amazing at playing up the camp aspect of a mystery.
She'd be able to win people over. I think she would be a good traitor. She
Heather?
could hide. Yeah, Heather would be able to hide
Not
being a
Meredith.
traitor. Not Meredith at all. Meredith would be a unwavering faithful.
Well, unfortunately, we do not have either of those ladies underneath this mask because it gets pulled up and we find out it's none other than Boston Rob from Survivor.
Broccoli Rob himself in person, for anybody who gets that. If you know, you know. But Alan's gambit right now that he's presenting to the players is, do you want Boston Rob to join the game? Come up and shake Alan's hand. And then you get to pick. Whoever shakes his hand gets to pick to eliminate someone from the game right now. And then Boston Rob will take their place instead. So you can send somebody home right now.
It seems like such a good opportunity for the people who got out of the cars and looked around and thought, I really didn't want to see this person here. I don't trust them. I don't want to play another game with them. They could get them out. But The trade-off is that now you have to let Rob in.
So Carolyn thought about it.
Oh, she debates it up until the last second. And I feel like the producers were really hoping that they would let Rob in the house right away.
Yeah.
Because I felt like Alan stood there for an unreasonable period of time, holding his hand out and repeatedly telling them all they had to do was come forward and shake his hand.
It's editing, though, because it feels longer than it actually is, because I think Carolyn was thinking about it. Is it Carolyn?
Carolyn.
Carolyn was thinking about it, and then she was regretting it because then he was warning that time's running out on this decision. So I think it was a pretty quick decision that you'd have to make in that moment. Split-second decision here, basically.
They do love to play with making things seem like the timing is off on this show. Every challenge will be down to the last second.
To the wire, every single time.
That's become noticeable over the seasons.
Very much, yeah.
Producers, that's something I think you got to work on.
Worth noting. Nobody shook Alan's hand, though, so they're sending Broccoli Rob packing. They don't want to deal with this guy.
They're sending him to sequester.
Well, they don't know that, but they think they are.
My first thought, because we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't watch all the episodes yet.
I knew what was going to happen.
Well, okay. Well, my mind was also thinking there's no way that they spent all of this time promoting that Boston Rob was going to be on the show, doing shoots, distributing the cast list, and then he's not even going to get into the castle.
My thing was, and you're not going to fly him over and then just have him stand there for the one opportunity and say, oh, no, see, they decided not to. Thanks anyway. No, you had to come up with an A and a B plot for that. What was going to happen if they said yes? What was going to happen if they said no?
Well, we don't know for now. All we know is that
he's out of the game.
Everyone who came to originally play, they're all going into the castle. And as far as they know, Boston Rob's going home.
Phew, so close. Glad we don't have to deal with that or think about that ever again. So then we're starting to meet some of the folks as they're coming through, getting a read on people. This is where I jotted down, Dorinda is probably going to be the worst type of faithful that I could imagine. Dorinda from the Housewives, of course.
You thought that she was going to be, what's your worst version of a faithful?
That's an excellent question. It's a faithful who is a faithful who thinks they know what's going on in the game and is absolutely convinced with their own internal convictions.
They are the most dangerous.
They are a threat.
Yeah, they always convince everyone that they know what's going on, and then they're sorely wrong. But then everyone trusts them over and over and over again.
Amazing how that works out. Because
and they usually
are.
Make it so far into the game.
Well, and that's the other thing, too, is then they end up being some of the best assets for the Traitors in the later stages of the game, because that's the way that you get to the end here is, as a traitor, you need to have faithfuls convinced that you, the traitor, are faithful as well. Those are the people you need to keep around.
Well, speaking of, so Tony from Survivor, he is overcompensating. They haven't even picked who the traitors are yet, and he is walking around telling everyone that he wants to play as a faithful. He is so excited to be here, to be a faithful, to find the traitors. There's no way he would play as a traitor. And then we get to see all of the footage from when every one of the cast members has their mini audition with Alan to pitch themselves as whether they should be a faithful or a traitor. And he is literally begging Alan to make him a traitor.
And I could tell just from the way he was talking it up about how he was so ready to be a faithful, didn't even want to play as a traitor. Come on, Tony.
Come on, we can tell.
Come on.
No, the funniest part was when Alan told someone else not to beg, and then they cut to Tony begging.
Please, I've been begged to enough already. Yeah, I don't need any more.
Had enough of that today.
Please.
By the way, I don't think we said this, but if you want to see the full cast list, check out our bio on this episode.
The episode description.
The show notes, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, we'll have a link in there because we'll bring people up as they're important to the story here. But there's some people where don't get too attached, right? There's going to be people who are out of the game. Broccoli Rob didn't even step foot in the building. You know what I'm saying?
And it's just so boring to tell you people's names and where they're from. You'll find out as we go.
You can get that. Yeah, we'll give you the little context as far as what games they've played and stuff like that.
It is one of the most important parts of the entire season now. We are going to sit down at the round table for the first time, and Alan's going to walk around while everybody has blindfolds on and pick who the traitors are going to be.
There were a lot of people this season who wanted to be the traitors, or at least were very vocal about it in those little segments that they were showing. So I thought that was odd.
I don't think so.
Even though, I mean, statistically speaking, it is better to be a traitor in the game. You are more likely to win, statistically.
Faithfuls won last season.
Yeah, but it was a rough road getting there.
It was. I think Phaedra made it look fun.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, that helps.
You get more airtime. Let's be real. That's what these people are concerned about.
Some of them, I guess, yeah.
I didn't feel like Alan walked around the table as many times as he normally does.
They just didn't drum it up as much this time.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of it ends up being the editing and how they kind of pace this out.
God, sometimes he walked around, he circled around that table like 5 times before he'd finally tap someone on the shoulder.
He gets very creative with all the different ways that he'll rustle his clothes or jingle his bracelets near people to make it sound like he's doing something or that he is touching someone's shoulder near them.
Nobody really suspected anyone afterwards, though, as far as what they heard. Because that has happened before where they'll be like, oh, I heard Alan's footsteps behind me. I heard him hesitate. I think he tapped this person on the shoulder. But we find out he has selected Danielle from Big Brother, Carolyn from Survivor, and Bob the Drag Queen from RuPaul's Drag Race, which this already sounds like it's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's a good combination of people because very different camps.
Well, and 2 people who already have potential issues with other people in the house.
Yep.
And then we've got Bob, who is here to, I feel like, bring the fun commentary from a traitor perspective. You can't have all of them take everything so seriously. And I feel like Danielle is going to take it too seriously.
No, Bob is going to have the sound clips, definitely. And there are plenty of snippets that she's able to provide for us.
What's up with Tom Sandoval? I mean, that's a general question that a lot of people have had for about over a year now.
Oh.
But he's in this game. Nobody really wants anything to do with him. He looks rough.
He seemed to be, over the first 3 episodes that we watched, I don't know if he's suffering from some sort of withdrawals or if he wasn't able to travel internationally with something that he's used to having. He did not look well.
No.
He was looking...
He's sweating a lot.
He's sweating profusely. I mean, at one point, there was a shot of him, spoiler, at breakfast, where his armpits are completely soaked.
I don't know if he worked out. Maybe we should give him the benefit of the doubt. But he
doesn't
looked progressively worse throughout the remainder of that episode.
He doesn't look like he worked out. He looks like he is violently ill, at least, or going through something even worse that I can't even know.
Everyone keeps commenting on the faces that he's making.
Tom he's mean mugging. He's hard staring at people. He was first to rip his blindfold off to try and see everyone else's reaction.
I think the room was just spinning for him. He had to get that blindfold off of him. He was like,
he had to hang his leg off the side of the chair.
He's not doing well.
He is struggling, but his suspicions, he aligns on Chriselle at some point. I don't even know why. He starts throwing her name around. There's multiple people who jump on board with that too.
Well, so the background on that is apparently Chriselle she's from Selling Sunset, another Bravo show. She is friends with Tom Sandoval's ex. And the whole story that went down there is people mostly took her side because there was a cheating scandal that was involved and unveiled. And it was a big deal in the Bravo universe. And so she feels like he's targeting her just because she is friends with his ex.
This is funny, though, because this is part of the experiment of this game where then you put all these people into this house and then you tell them there's a traitor amongst them. And then people get paranoid and they start overanalyzing or looking into things or reading into things that aren't actually there. So maybe he was picking up on some negative vibes from her.
Yeah, she doesn't like him.
Yeah, she doesn't like you, but you make a lot of people uncomfortable, Tom, is what we're finding out. So
I can't believe he wasn't the first out. I feel like that is growth from the people on the Traitors because normally the first person that they vote out of the house is someone that they feel is different than the others for some reason. And it's usually not a good reason. It's just they other somebody. And something like just making people feel weird in your presence would be a reason for everyone to suspect you're a traitor. But we forge on. We're going to go to our first mission. And this one is out on the lock. They love to use the loch. There's going to be a lot of water challenges.
It's Scotland. Yeah, you have to use the environment that you have.
So they're going to set up 5 pontoons.
Uh-huh.
Trying to make sure I'm using the right verbiage.
Right, yeah.
Not pantaloons.
Nope.
And there is fuel on some of them, and there is going to be gold on the others. There's $40,000 worth of gold. And the point is to collect that money to go into the pot of money that gets won at the end, because they say it's $250,000, but you have to earn that money through all of the challenges that they have in the season.
And there's an asterisk at the end of $250,000 where it says up to $250,000.
Yeah, I feel like the prize money needs to be higher than that.
I feel like this is a lot more work. Even just this first challenge, this is a lot to go through.
I feel like this was one of the most brutal challenges that they've had. Everybody was cold, and they were talking about being hungry.
Not everybody.
Not
everybody, as we find out.
Yeah, so they have to collect this stuff from the pontoons by rowing out on a boat together.
So it's like a big Viking boat. They have oars off either side, so now they have to work together as a team to get the boat moving. The only instruction that they're given, though, is get on the boat, get to the pontoons, grab the stuff, and then come back here and then light the fire with the fuel around here. Everybody who's standing right here at the end gets a shield. And it was like, oh, okay, well, that sounds pretty good.
Which a shield means that you're then protected from being murdered by the traitors.
Which is really good, but how are we all going to be protected by it? Alarm bells should have been going off right away, but nobody questioned that. Nobody asked for any additional details. They're not going to give you any anyway. So everybody jumps into the boat, and we can't even get this thing started.
They need an engine. They need a sail, perhaps.
A pull start. It's not happening. No,
they cannot all row together.
Nobody knows who should be rowing, when, or where.
Or that the oars actually need to make contact with the surface of the water in order to propel the boat forward.
Well, and they're stationary at a dock. You have to get off the dock, then you have to turn the boat, which means you only have to row with one side to turn it.
Okay, where is the Mountbatten?
I don't know.
Where is our royal family member? We need rowing instruction. We need to identify the coxswain. We need him in the front of the boat. No, the back? I forget where they go.
Well, I don't know who's the shuttlecock and who's the... You've lost me already.
They do kind of get it together. I feel like that was attributed to Tony.
To Tony?
Or was he just yelling a lot?
No, I think Tony was yelling a lot, and it wasn't helping because he was just yelling that one side should be it, but then he was yelling that his side should be rowing, which was not the side if they wanted to turn the way that they needed to turn. So he was actually adding to the confusion and the misinformation. I think when they really started going the right direction was when Bob the Drag Queen stood up and told everyone, heave ho. That's when we got the rhythm down.
Okay, I missed who said heave ho.
Yes, that was Bob the Drag Queen, and she was able to stand up and direct traffic in that situation from the opposite end of whoever was supposed to be saying, because all they were saying was, row, 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 and that wasn't helping anything because nobody knew, okay, I'm rowing?
Who knew?
Who's
all
rowing?
They need, heave ho was easier for everyone to understand.
Heave ho, that's you can wrap your mind.
Universal.
Yeah, it's just something that's a little bit more obtainable, I think, in that moment under the stress and the conditions that they were in.
I mean, after that, it's like they're professional rowers. They get the boat right to the pontoon.
Somehow. So then this is where they read the note that's been left on the pontoon, which is, yeah, this is great, but in order to retrieve the stuff that's here, I think it was fuel to start, you have to leave 2 team members. So hop off the boat and stay shackled to the pontoon for the rest of the game now.
They really believed that all they had to do was get in this boat, obtain these objects, and they would all just come back to the starting point and win a shield.
Nobody asked.
That doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. I guess unless you would have to...
Because then we would all be protected.
Right. Unless you would have to like decide at the end of it when you're back, who's going to stand on the shield because you have to be standing on the shield when you light the fire. But that brings up a whole other set of issues because this is what adds to the complication. You are losing crew members of rowing this boat along the way. The further away you get, and then you're going to have to do a long haul all the way back.
They're not even being that strategic about it.
Well, they just start casting women off. Women and children first.
That's pretty much what happens. All of the guys look at each other and they're like, I'm not getting off this boat.
All the gamers look at each other because that seems to be like the definitive point of separation amongst all these people right now, is that the gamers don't volunteer for stuff.
Well, and the traitors are here in a predicament because they know that there's no way that they're going to get murdered because they are the traitors that do the murdering.
But you have to pretend to be scared. You have to still have that fear. So you can't just jump out of the boat and say, oh, it's fine, whatever.
Because people are going to start to suspect if you're so comfortable with being possibly eliminated from the game, maybe it's because you can't be eliminated from the game.
And that's immediately what happens with a lot of people. But the first two...
We're knocking housewives out of these boats.
It's housewives.
Ian from Real Housewives of Dubai and Robin from Real Housewives of Potomac. First ones out of the boat. I don't know that they really understood exactly what was going on.
I don't think they got it. And then this was the difficult thing because then there's a time element too. You are being timed. So you have to make these decisions quick on the fly. And that was where we ran into the whole issue. Okay, if nobody wants to get out of the boat, how do you quickly decide who are the two people who are going to get out of the boat? I think you came up with a really good solution because I was saying rock, paper, scissors, but that would take
too long.
Forever.
Oldest and youngest get out of the boat.
That's great. But if Heather was here, nobody would know her birthday. Not even the crew.
It's true.
They would have no way to verify.
Look, if you're not going to be truthful, we're going to go off of how you look. And that would be a lot more insulting.
That's going to put you right up to the front of the list.
I feel like that would still take too long because everyone would be debating.
Yeah, of who's actually the oldest and the youngest.
Well, luckily we have like people who are
dumb enough.
I wasn't going to say it. Dumb enough or do not have enough willpower to resist the rest of the group yelling at them to get out of the boat.
Well, and oblivious to the repercussions of what this decision is actually entailing. So yeah, they're jumping out, they're shackling themselves to the pontoon. See you later, guys. So on to the next one.
It wouldn't have been so bad if it was just two of the housewives who got out, but then the second pontoon, Dolores and Dorinda get out. And they both volunteer to leave. They don't really have to be pulled out of the boat as much as the first two.
They figured, oh, it's the same as the last time. We have to get rid of two people to continue on with the boat. So they just jump right out. After they get shackled to the pontoon and the boat is now going to the third pontoon, they have a moment of clarity with each other where they go, that might be a little suspicious though, because we jumped out of the boat like we weren't afraid of being murdered.
They might think that we're the traitors, actually.
Oh, I guess that was like
that wasn't smart.
Not a great play.
No, and it's extra suspicious because now the first four people off the boat are housewives.
Not great. It's not a good look. But again, who's the most oblivious? People who are not used to playing these types of games.
Yeah, to be fair, that's not really a challenge game.
No.
It is a social game.
Housewives. Is. Yeah, and Housewives, there's a lot of team building things where you have to jump in and you just got to go do it. Sometimes you got to ride over a rickety bridge down in Mexico on an ATV.
I feel like it's Housewives of Salt Lake City that loves to do an adventure activity like that.
The ropes
I don't know
course.
That the others really love to go out and do that every other episode.
No, probably not. Definitely not.
Well, they get to the next location and it's time to kick two more people out. And Bob the drag queen stands up and is like, look, there are 4 women left in this boat. Some of these guys got to get out of here.
I think
this is ridiculous.
Yeah,
now.
The guys were trying to go with the theory of you need the strong men in the boat to row the boat and get you there safely. So that was what they were kind of going with. And it's like, dude.
You're also weighing the boat down.
You're weighing the boat down.
With your egos.
And your closed-mindedness.
No, but this was so smart, in my opinion, of Bob. Because Bob is seeing an opportunity here to stand up for the women, which could mean that they want to align with you.
Yep. This is a good way to call out what's happening right now.
Which is bullshit.
In a way that does not draw attention to you as being a traitor.
Well, it kind of backfires because it ends up with Bob getting off the boat.
But I mean,
then he's joined by Danielle.
But honestly, like that's an okay way to go about it. But this was a weird one.
Look at me. I'm sacrificing myself.
Yes. This was a weird one, though, because then Danielle jumped off the boat, too. They don't know that they're both traitors right now. So now you have two traitors on this one single pontoon, which would be suspicious because that's what they're going to try and convince everyone. The first two pontoons are full of traitors right now. I just thought it was funny that it was the two of them. They didn't know.
And we actually had 2 of the 3 traitors get out during this competition.
On that specific one.
And together. Yeah. It was ironic.
So then they go to the next one. And then I think it's the other Bob, Biggest Loser Bob, and Sam. They jump out.
Yeah. Sam Azari. How do you say his name? I can never say it. Who was married to Britney Spears. That's right. I feel like he doesn't know where he is. Do you think he knows that he's on the show? He's ever seen the Traitors before? Or that he just heard there was a prize fund of $250,000 and
that sounds good.
He got to this castle in Scotland somehow.
Yeah, and they're paying for the ticket. So, yeah, I think you should be all right. He's going to make a go at it.
And Bob Harper's out of his depth. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that too.
Now, they're faced with a decision because everyone's getting tired. They've been rowing kind of a lot. They've already let 8 people off the boat. They're supposed to stop and get the last $20,000, which would be really nice to add to the prize money at the end, because now we're talking about $230,000 if they don't go collect this. And they put it to a vote as to whether or not they're just going to go back to shore or if they're going to try to get that last $20,000 and remove 2 more people from the boat.
That was where it got trickier because then Tony had pointed out the real question is not, do we go get the money? Do we go to the next pontoon? Because they knew that they had enough time based on how much time they were taking to go between them. They would be able to get there and get back. Who's going to jump off the boat, though? That is the magic question. So do we have any volunteers who are going to get off at the next pontoon? Nobody says anything. So, okay, well, we're not going to waste our time going to the pontoon and then have nobody get off the boat.
Just gonna fight and not finish the challenge.
Yeah, so that's no good. So if we're going to sort that out right here and right now, the answer is nobody's going to volunteer. Then we're going back and we're calling it then.
It was good future thinking because there was a big chance on the show that people would get there, argue, run out of time, and not finish the challenge.
I don't know why you wouldn't have 2 people who would, at that point,
just say, fuck it.
Whatever. Yeah, you're just 2 more people among the group now.
I didn't understand that was optional.
That's what it was saying.
I didn't understand that it was optional, that they could just not collect the last $20,000 and head back, and that it would count as though they completed the whole challenge.
I just thought of the best way to solve this, too.
Let's hear it.
It's way too late, and you would never be able to explain this to a group of 20 people in the middle of the challenge. But I would say row to the last pontoon. Skip all of them, row to the last pontoon as a full group. Then you start dropping people off. So if you read the sign and you can figure out, I think they're all going to say you have to shackle 2 people to the pontoon.
So what, you wouldn't have put anybody at each of the pontoons? You would put them all at the last one?
No. So I would row all the way to the last one, and then I would work my way back. So right now, what they ran into was they left 2 people. So now you had 18 people who were rowing to the second one. You drop 2 people there. Now you have 16 people rowing. So you're diminishing your group. So if you have the entire group row out,
so
you save energy.
Have that much distance to make it all the way back.
You don't have that much distance. You're lessening the gap that you have to go with less people. So I don't know if you'd be allowed.
Yeah, it would have taken you a long time to explain that to me.
Yeah, and I don't think it would have worked out in that way. No. So that's the frustrating thing is perfection is the opposite of done. But man, I do like to think of the perfect way to do things sometimes.
Well, they get back to shore with their $20,000 and they have left 8 people out on the pontoons. So that means Ian, Robin, Dolores, Dorinda, Bob the Drag Queen, Danielle, Bob Harper, and Sam are all up for grabs for the traitors to murder tonight.
But we know that Bob the Drag Queen and Danielle are traitors. So actually, there's only 6 people out there who are risking murder right now.
Yeah, the pool has gotten very small.
So I think the biggest slap in the face for this entire challenge that happened, because it's bad enough as they're passing the people on the pontoons when they were going back at the end, and they're like, yeah, we didn't get the last one, oh well, and the people on the pontoons were like, what the fuck, then why did I even get out of the boat?
Yeah, first of all, if you get to the end, you're $20,000 less than you could have been if they had finished the challenge, which they had plenty of time to do, and they have increased the odds that you are likely to be eliminated by being murdered because they have not let 2 more people out of the boat.
Exactly. And then the worst part is that they just pack up. The people who went to the shore, they just pack up into the cars and drive off. They're going back. Now you have to wait for everybody else who's still out on the pontoons, who are cold and miserable and shackled to a pontoon. They have to go get picked up. They didn't even wait for them at the cars.
Why did it take them so long for production to get them off of the pontoons? Did something go wrong?
No, I don't think it took that long. I think it was just they went straight to the cars after they were done.
But they're not driving the cars.
No, I know, but
production drives these vehicles and takes them from place to place.
Yeah, but like what I'm saying is like the people who were done and were already at the Shield, and it was...
Yeah, they were like, I'm cold and hungry. Take me back to the castle.
And they have 5 cars or however many cars that they take from the castle. So the other group of folks, they were just going to ride together in their car. The last car? Yeah, the last car or the last 2.
Yeah, we don't have a housewives sprinter van for everybody.
No, it's not one bus. But the fact that it was everybody who was on the shore already in a better situation than everybody who was left out and marooned on pontoons is jumping into a car and then going back to the house. So that now everybody on the pontoons, we've created an us and them scenario again, where we have the pontoon people who've been through hell and back today, and then the gluttonous, just greedy, selfish people who are back at the house already, who were on the boat the whole time.
Well, I have to say, I would lose my shit too if I got back after that and they ate all the food.
When they get back, when the pontoon people come back and they see dinner has been picked over and some trays are completely empty, I would have lost my shit.
Because I got to say, like, craft services works overtime on this show. They always have an amazing spread of food out for them to eat whenever it's time for dinner. And they were scraping the bottom of these sternos. There was almost nothing left.
They couldn't even tell what was in them previously. No. It was a mystery. Don't even know.
We saw people going back for second and third servings before the people on the pontoons even got there to take a first plate.
The boat people taking seconds. This is criminal. This is just unforgivable. So
Dorinda loses her shit.
And I would have too. I feel like I would have lost it. But then wouldn't it be weirder if you got back to the house and then you told everybody, hey, we should wait to eat until the pontoon people come back because we kind of fucked them. We didn't grab the last $20,000. Maybe we'll like wait to eat together, give it a minute. I feel like that you would have gotten more shit if you brought that up.
I hate it and I wouldn't have wanted it done to me. But I don't know that if I was a person who got back there first, it would have crossed my mind to wait for everyone else.
I would have
assumed that they were right behind us.
No, I would have felt weird getting in the car and leaving them while they're still shackled on the pontoons. That would have been weird. I would have been like, I don't know. Is everybody okay?
Should we like wait?
Yeah, like, should I hang out for a little bit? Because it just instantly, everybody got in the car and fucked off.
Well, unfortunately, people are already suspicious of the housewives, and Dorinda starts to go off about the fact that everybody ate. They didn't wait for them. They were cold. They were hungry. This was a horrible experience. They screwed them over in the challenge by not finishing and, not having the last 2 people get out of the boat. And her outrage just continues to fuel everyone's suspicion that she could be a traitor.
Which is weird because
Exactly.
that doesn't make any sense. I would not suspect her to be a traitor at all. That would clear her as a faithful 100% in my mind, because if she were a traitor, you just shut up and you murder one of those fuckers who was in the boat.
Exactly.
That's what you do as a traitor. You do not unload and go yell at everybody in the kitchen.
You try to get the story of who was the one who drove the decision to not go to the last pontoon.
Yeah, I wonder, when did that come up in conversation? Because we lost out on $20,000. So who was responsible for that? That was Tony that brought that up? That interesting mental scenario where we played out who was going to actually leave themselves at the pontoon that we didn't row to yet? That's an interesting one.
I'm going to be eating his breakfast tomorrow morning when he's not here.
Seconds for breakfast tomorrow.
Unfortunately, I think the mistake that she made was shaming everybody, and people didn't like feeling that they were wrong for what they did, so she's going to go home because of that.
You can't hold people accountable in the Traitors. You really can't. You have to pretend like everything's fine. It's totally fine.
At the end of the episode, we find out that Boston Rob may be returning to the game, and that since they didn't let him in to play as a faithful initially, that he's going to be joining as a traitor. And not only is it him, but there are 2 more people waiting in cages. That's what we see. We see a visual of these cages hanging in the air, and we don't know who they are yet, but these 3 people are going to be joining the game.
It made me think back to if he had joined the game based on the invite. Like if somebody had swapped, if somebody took Alan up on his offer of shaking his hand, I feel like they would not have picked Boston Rob to be a traitor then at the round table if he was part of that group.
I agree.
And that's
I think
how it changed.
He would have been the first one suspected to be one too.
Well, that's what makes it interesting then, is that he wouldn't have been picked in that scenario, but everybody would have thought he was. So that could have played out completely differently. But instead, by people saying, no, we don't want to play with Boston Rob, well, guess what? Now he's coming in, and he's coming in as a traitor.
Which is pretty much the thing that you all feared the most.
So there you go. You
Good
got
job.
it. Yeah, there's no way of avoiding it now.
Well, maybe that's their karma for eating Dorinda's dinner.
I guess we'll have to see. But up in the turret, the traitors do gather. They meet for the first time, and then they have to pick who they're going to murder. Who would you have murdered?
I think we talked about this. I would have murdered a housewife because, not Dorinda, but I was thinking Dolores or Robin would have been on my list because of the fact that there were housewives as the traitors last time.
That makes sense.
And then I also thought Bob Harper, because I feel like he came in here. He has no alliances, no allegiances. He's not from another type of game or really a show that had a cast outside of him and Jillian Michaels, that he would be really non-consequential.
The person that I narrowed it down to was Biggest Loser Bob as well. Bob
Really?
Harper. So that was going to be my play. But I think my train of thought was very different on how to get there.
Okay.
Because the first 4 people out of the boat were housewives.
Uh-huh.
So that's an easy one. You would not want to go after housewives right now because everybody thinks Dorinda is the traitor right now.
Well, exactly.
So don't kill her because
she's a good cover.
She's a great cover.
She's going to get voted out anyway.
Right. You're going to lose her at the round table, and you know people are going to be voting or at least campaigning. There's going to be conversation for her in a very prominent way. So that keeps you out of any discussion, which is great.
So that's the end of the first episode. Just giving you guys a little idea of where we're at in case you're also watching on Peacock. Do you want to explain a little bit about what happens in the turret? Because I feel like we really didn't give like a explanation of what the traitors come together to do.
The turret is the secret society of the traitors where they meet after everyone goes to bed. And
in a tower in the castle.
It's an inner sanctum where they get to choose who they're going to murder. And then that's how that is decided, is that they write it out on the piece of paper and then that's delivered to the person. That person doesn't show up to breakfast tomorrow morning.
Exactly. And that's the only other way you can get out of this game other than when they have a round table where everybody votes to eliminate somebody who they think is a traitor.
As a traitor, you're trying to spread the confusion where people are thinking that they know who the traitors are, but they're actually accusing other faithfuls and voting out faithfuls at the round table. And then you get to murder people and pick people off as a traitor every night, too.
I felt like Bob the drag queen, Carolyn, and Danielle seemed like pretty okay with seeing each other as the traitors, but they start to clash, like pretty much from the beginning, Danielle and Carolyn.
Danielle and Carolyn, because Danielle is convinced that she knows how to play this game, and Carolyn is trying to let her know, you've never played this game before.
I am telling you, that is going to be Danielle's downfall.
It is. You see it in the next morning.
And it's the hubris of thinking that you are so smart that this game is exactly like the game you're used to, which she came from Big Brother.
And that's what Dan went through last season, where he came
Another Big Brother player.
And he thought he was in the best position as a traitor. He knows exactly what he's going to be doing. And he got caught off guard. He wasn't ready for all this. So I think Danielle gets a little overconfident. Carolyn is just kind of flying by the seat of her pants. That's just what she's doing. She's very scattered. She's running from room to room. She's frantic. She's not really conveying any full thoughts to anybody. It's kind of working out because she just seems very aloof, but not in a threatening way. So
no, in just a confused way.
Yeah, she just seems dippy and not comprehending what's going on.
Which, again, I feel like worked for Phaedra last season.
Yeah.
Where she just kind of let other people talk and then would be like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, agree, but not actually outright agreeing.
Yeah.
So this was when I thought Bob the drag queen was in the best position as a traitor, because you have Danielle and Carolyn, who are your fellow traitors, who are already bickering amongst each other right now. They're disagreeing. They're not on the same page. You'll be able to use this at some point because one of them's going to fuck up, and then you'll be able to flip the other one so easily.
When you have to get rid of a traitor.
Yes, that's going to be the easiest turn.
As soon as they start suspecting Danielle, it's going to be time to turn on her and feed her to the faithfuls.
Yes. So I think that was where I had the most confidence in Bob the Drag Queen, was in this first turret scene. And then pretty much after that, it kind of wavers.
Well, the way that I was like internally screaming when Danielle suggested that they kill Dorinda.
Dorinda's name comes up. And as soon as that came up, I was like, oh no, they have no idea what they're doing. They have no fucking clue.
I was more annoyed that then they threw out the alternative of Robin. And I was like, okay, we're going in the right direction.
Now you're
Another
getting there.
housewife, but not Dorinda, who was most definitely going to get voted out at the first round table if you don't murder her tonight.
Yeah, because the benefit as a traitor of knowing who people are looking at and going to bring up at a round table means that you have less people looking into you. That's your good cover. You want to keep those people in the game as long as you possibly can.
I think that Dorinda scared Danielle because of the fact that she just came for everybody when she got back, that she wasn't afraid to confront them, that she was loud, she got everybody's attention, and that's not good if she starts throwing out names. But again, I think she was going to last one more day.
Yeah, it was going to be the next round table, and then she was going to have to defend herself, make more people feel bad about themselves, and then they would have voted her out right then and there. So I don't think she would have made it too much further, but this is the point where I think this was Bob the Drag Queen's play, was we need to make things chaotic. Chaos seems to be her game plan, and it works.
It does sometimes work.
Okay, here's when it works. It works when it needs to work. You need chaos when there is order, when they are getting to a place where they think they have things figured out. That's when you need to throw a curveball.
At first, what they're thinking about is probably, how do we eliminate people in a way that doesn't direct anyone to who is doing it? Because that's what you don't want to do too early, is have them start coming up with theories around the person who's getting murdered and what the motive was, and have it actually point to you because it was a strategic murder. So instead, they're chaotically picking the people who they're getting rid of at first, so that people can't really piece together exactly why that would happen. Because again, doesn't make sense. Dorinda's going to be voted out by everyone most likely. So why would you murder her?
Well, it's terrible to pick people for murder who already have beef with other people in the house, especially people who are other faithfuls, because those faithfuls are going to be so focused and concentrated on them. That's what they're going to be dealing with. They will eventually get them out.
Well, it's a chaos pick, I think, but it still doesn't seem very smart to me.
And that's okay for a first one, but man, I don't know why. You could literally throw a dart at a list of names at this point, and that would be the chaos pick, because Dorinda has too much value right now. If you could pick anyone literally anyone from the cast, she was at the bottom of my list.
You want to go to breakfast?
So the
Next
next morning, yes.
By the way, the breakfast always looks amazing.
Always, every single time.
Making me hungry. The Traitors have to show up to breakfast and pretend that they have no idea who is not going to show up, because they always have everyone come in small groups. Like they knock on a door to come into the breakfast room, and there's 3 or 4 people together who come in at a time, and you're just waiting to see who's still missing. And the whole time, the Traitors know who's not going to be showing up.
And it's just more and more people shuffling in, asking, who do you think the Traitors are? Oh, who do you think got murdered last night? Oh, who are we waiting on?
You know who's loud as fuck at this breakfast asking everyone who the Traitors are? Tony. Tony from Survivor.
Tony is asking everyone. And I feel like this is why I wouldn't last very long in this game, is because anytime anybody asked me who I think the traitor is, I would say, yeah, I think it's you. And then see what their reaction is.
They would get very upset about that.
And they would get very upset about that.
They'd have a personal vendetta against you.
Yeah, I would do that with everyone, though.
Yeah, Tom is sweating. That's a lot of...
He's
leaning over people as he's sweating.
See, the other thing I don't like is when all of the traitors sit together. And I think that was something that happened, too, where it ended up with Bob the Drag Queen, Danielle, and Carolyn were all down at that end. And then Tom was just sweating over them. He was leaning his arm over. Oh, my gosh.
He is slouched over the table with his armpit just fully in their faces.
I can't believe they went with Dorinda, though.
He's a bad man. Yeah. Well, despite Carolyn's reservations about it, they somehow all agreed that they're going to get rid of Dorinda.
No, I think it was when they showed the footage of Carolyn. She said, I'm too tired. Whatever. If this is what you want to do, fuck it. I don't care.
They did just...
She phoned it in. She was like, all right.
She had no more will left in her at 3 in the morning.
So I don't get fined, and I would like to go to bed now. What a horrible play. This was terrible.
Everyone's kind of confused for the exact conversation that we had about why her. And after breakfast, everyone kind of starts breaking off into groups and throwing out ideas of why this may have happened. Some of the group is starting to look at Wells, who is from The Bachelor or Bachelor in Paradise.
There's kind of some whispers, some rumblings of Bob the Drag Queen too, but mostly it's kind of split between Wells and then Bob the Drag Queen. Dylan is kind of exploring some other stuff too. He's trusting Danielle a lot at this point. So he's sharing some theories with her.
Dylan Efron.
Has
he ever acted in anything? I feel like we got to look that up.
I don't know.
I don't feel like he really has credentials. He's just somehow, he knows somebody at NBC who was able to get him on this show.
Well, yeah, and it's always great when people say, oh, Zach's brother. And it's like, yeah, because he hasn't been hearing that his whole life. So that's always good.
I mean, you almost can't tell anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you give it enough time, people aren't going to be able to know.
Zach's, cement jaw.
The structure has changed.
Exactly what has happened to his
structural
face.
Integrity of the face.
Wells cannot comprehend this whole decision to get rid of Dorinda. And he is talking to the wrong people.
He's me. He's going, what a stupid fucking play this was. And then you have all of these other dum-dums in the library now where Robin's jumping in. I think it was a genius play. It was so smart, the play by the Traitors. No, it was fucking dumb is what it was.
She's really starting to get on my nerves, and I feel like she's going to be here for a very long time.
But this is the chaos that I can't anticipate. So this is what Bob the Drag Queen was talking about when she's saying, hey, pick this. It's going to cause chaos. Yeah, because then you have people who criticize it, who expect the game to go a certain way, and it's not going that way, and that doesn't make any sense. And then you're forced to try to explain why that doesn't make sense to people who think it's a good idea, and you are just carrying that burden for the rest of the game.
This was reminding me of last season with Peter the Pilot from The Bachelor, which the guys from The Bachelor seem to have this problem where they can't win the group over, and they can't get over the fact that they're pretty sure of what is going on here and no one else is picking up on it, and they feel the need to try to convince the group.
And then they feel crazy, though, so then they don't want to speak up as much either?
No, and the worst part is they know. Like, they're right.
They know what's going on. Yeah. They have it dialed in.
So something seems off about the whole Dorinda thing. Robin thinks it's genius, which is a strange thing to say because a lot of people think that it could have been a housewife. And here you are defending the Traitors' decision to murder a housewife because it's a good distraction.
It's a pretty wild stance to have.
As a housewife.
Yeah, as a housewife in this game when you are basically at the top of everyone's suspect list now.
We have our second mission to go on today. And the 3 cages that we saw from the end of the previous episode are back up in the air. And we've got 3 people in them.
Well, it's 1 in each cage. Yeah.
Exactly.
So we've got, of course, Boston Rob, because we know that he was there. And then we also have Derek and Wes, but it's not Wes from Netflix. Nailed it.
I wanted to call it Is It Cake? And I'm like, it's not Is It Cake?
Wes.
Nailed
It's not
it.
him.
No, it's not. It would be,
That would have
wish
been
it
great.
was. That would be fun.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
But apparently Derek's from Big Brother and Wes is from The Challenge. Everyone on this show thinks that they are the most pivotal player who has ever been on the franchise of show that they were on.
I was born to play reality TV strategy games, and that's just what I do, okay? That's why you invited me here, so I could win this thing.
Like, admittedly, I'm not familiar with all of these people, but I'm starting to question if their claims are really true. Because there's a lot of them who think that they are the best player from Survivor or the best player from The Challenge.
This is a totally different game, too. So this is what gets me every time is when these people are so confident, so cocky that they have this all under control. No, I don't think you're prepared for what you're walking into. This is a very different game. If you play too aggressively, which a lot of them play too aggressively, then that ends up biting you in the ass. You have to find the balance.
Well, I guess we'll see what their future is going to be. But first, Alan has to tell everyone, these aren't just props. These 3 people are joining the cast. They are going to be in the castle with you after this. And your challenge is to get them out of these cages. You have to go run and collect bags of money, bring it back. I guess it was they were filling up
a jar?
A jar.
A tip jar? Is that how they're getting these guys down here? The only reason that we had Rob back is because we hired him on for a day rate and he had a minimum. And so he's just here because we had a couple extra days that we had to pay him out for. So he's just going to be at all these challenges. No, he's joining the game. Yeah, they are playing the game now. But this is weird. It ends up being like a kind of a popularity contest, sort of. It's just like people trying to suck up to these people of like just dropping a penny in the jar, of alms for the poor.
It reminded me of that challenge where they had to answer questions about the cast with who they thought best fit that question or, whatever was being posed. And they were trying to give like the most palatable answers as to not insult certain people. And then you just knew everyone that they hated. It kind of felt a little bit like that because everyone is pouring money into Boston Rob's jar.
Yeah, because everybody owes him. You all chose to not let him join the game on the first day. You all have wronged him.
The weirder part is that as they're putting money into this jar, they stop to introduce themselves to him.
Well, yeah, because they're trying to gain favor with the new players. And it's like, I don't care.
It's so brown nosy. And also the 3 people who are up in these cages are 3 people who have a mindset of, I don't give a fuck what you say. If I have to turn on you at some point in this game, I will. So there's really no purpose in trying to kiss my ass at this point.
There is a little bit of a purpose because they all have shields as well. So if they get
That's
lowered...
true. I left that part out.
So that was the other component to this. But it is funny because there are all the people who are scrambling around for these coins to try to win favor. And then it's just ending up in this whole other dynamic.
I take it back because I guess they were introducing themselves so that when they all got down from their cages and they each had a shield to give out, they would know who they were giving the shield to.
Remember me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, very much so.
When you come to repay me,
yeah,
this is who I am.
So they're able to, at the buzzer, they got everybody down because it was slowly lowering these cages too. And they were able to get everybody out. So all 3 of the shields are available for distribution now. And then Alan is introducing them. They've won the full $15,000 for this challenge and the 3 shields. So since these guys, since Derek, Wes, and Boston Rob are new to the game, they are immune from murder, and they will not be eligible for voting for the banishment either. So they can't be voted out, and they won't be contributing to the vote.
They'll be present for it,
They'll be
but
present,
they won't be voting themselves.
But they won't be active involved in it. So this is their first day. This is just to kind of figure out what's going on. And then they have the shields to hand out as they see fit as well.
As soon as they get back to the castle, they start information gathering because they're kind of behind. They haven't been here for what, like the first day and a half?
Yeah, so they're trying to gather information, but who are they getting their information from? Sweaty Tom. Tom is leading them around, and yeah, let me take you to the photo wall here, and
Chriselle, don't look any further than her. She is the only traitor in the game.
That's the twist this season. There's only one traitor, and her name's Trishelle.
Right away, Wes clocks it, and he's like, something's wrong with this guy.
I'm not listening to anything that this guy's saying. Get me out of here.
No, and then we had Boston Rob trying to get information from other people, and the look on his face, you could just tell that his eyes had glazed over at that point, listening to the stupidity that he was surrounded by in the room.
The theories, how wildly inaccurate everything was. So they knew, all right, well, we should have just left it at we have no information and gathered our own information from here.
Exactly.
But
you didn't need the bias from whatever information they provided to you.
I am now more confused than I started with zero information.
They get to the round table. This is the first round table we've had where everyone is going to vote for a person that they think is the traitor. But first, there gets to be an open discussion. You get to accuse people if you want. You get to defend yourself if you get accused. And then they go to the vote. Bob the Drag Queen is the first one to throw out a name, which I felt like was a brave thing to do as a traitor.
That's risky.
Usually they try to sit back a little bit and just feel out the table.
But wouldn't that be more suspicious if Bob the Drag Queen, who is very vocal and outspoken, is then suddenly quiet at the round tables?
That's true. Maybe it was like a personality thing. If I didn't say anything, that would be weird.
That's why it's hard. That was a difficult role for Bob the Drag Queen to have the traitor role assigned is very, very difficult because she's just not going to fade into the background. She is very visible and has to play it in a forward manner that way, a little bit more aggressively probably.
Well, that's an interesting departure from what we've seen with a lot of the traitors in the past.
It's different, yeah.
Yeah. Bob accuses Wells.
Yeah, and then Robin piles on because Robin has her own suspicions of Wells because he disagreed with her that the murder was a brilliant play last night.
Which again, weird thing to bring up at the round table in front of everyone that you think the traitors had a very, very smart move by murdering Dorinda.
It's not your typical round table sort of discussion, and nobody else clocks that. Nobody puts any credence into that with Robin's whole strategy play.
It was smart of Bob to jump on the Wells train, though, because there was already some suspicion there, and we're just starting to kind of feed that to the table. Then Tom opens his mouth, and of course, he thinks I'm going to call her Trishelle at some point because of Trishelle last season.
Yeah, it's Chriselle. Yeah, he can't get over that. He has been talking about it with the 3 new players, and he is all revved up, and he's got nowhere to direct all of this extra energy. So he's going to steer it in her direction.
Which was the wrong thing to do because she is easily able to explain that away as, well, he doesn't like me because of the situation with Ariana and the fact that I'm friends with her.
Also, I don't like you. And there's a lot of people that don't like you and don't like the way that you're looking at people.
Yeah, I think it was dumb of him to bring it up because it reminded everyone of why the entire world hates you, Tom.
Yeah, because Tom's whole thing was Chriselle was looking sus. She was making me uncomfortable. And Chriselle's like, may I remind you that you always look sus. You are sweating profusely currently as we speak, sweating through your shirt.
And you would be a perfect traitor because you are a liar and a cheater.
And you're you're just staring at people in ways that make them wildly uncomfortable. So if we're talking about
threatening
people being uncomfortable, you are at the top of that list.
we have another traitor who's going to speak up. Danielle shifts the blame to Robin. Again, another housewife.
I thought that was kind of an overplay. Did you really need to drive that point home? You don't need two traitors talking in a round table either.
No, that's what I thought. Why are you going to open your mouth too? Like there's just too many traitor opinions now.
And Robin was agreeing with what Bob the Drag Queen had originally posted. So now you're going against that? Don't do that.
Maybe she thought that she was being an agent of chaos.
I mean, I guess,
I don't
but
know.
it's just the chaos, controlled chaos. I think you need to have control over the chaos.
She's really into the it has to be a housewife thing. I feel like that's what she's going to hang her hat on of there's a lot of housewives. So that's going to buy you a couple of weeks of being like, oh, I was wrong about that one. It's got to be this
We
one.
were wrong about all of them, and that gets you a quarter of the way through the game.
That's what I think her play is.
Plus, I feel like a lot of the gamers don't see the housewives as a threat necessarily. So they're fine with, okay, yeah, I can get on board with that and moving that along, potentially. Well, they would have with Dorinda, but they murdered her. So that was, again, a waste of a round table.
Well, so instead of Dorinda going home, Wells gets voted out. But it was a really strange roundtable in that everyone was just voting for random ass people. No one was really that compelled by the arguments that took place.
I mean, the arguments were all over the place. And then I think the only other one, because it came down to Robin, Wells, and then
Carolyn was the deciding vote.
Well, I mean, there was 4 votes for Robin.
The number of people who were getting voted for?
Robin had 4 votes to be eliminated. Wells had 4 votes. And then Ivar had 4 as well. So that was weird.
For like no real reason.
There wasn't a reason necessarily.
He's
except
British.
That he,
See, they're othering him.
No. So what it was because he had the disagreement with Dorinda right before she got murdered. So people are treating this like a murder mystery, like a game of Clue, like an actual murder, even though traitors don't have to have motive. The motive is to get
rid of a person.
To get you to think that somebody who is faithful did that. So that should probably be a pretty big clue that he wasn't the one who did that murder.
This is why you would be out the first week.
Yeah, people don't like the way I explain things.
Well, it's not that you're wrong. It's that they don't like being told that they're wrong.
No, I know, but...
Or logic.
And also, I would feel all of these convictions in the way that the show edits around stuff. You only see half of the stuff. You only see what makes sense to actually put into the show. So if I was given all of the information, I would be confused as shit too. So then I would go all in on my opinions and I would be wildly wrong.
Turns out Wells is a faithful. We knew that. But
well, yeah, he was making people
I guess
think.
5 people didn't.
He was giving applause. Yeah, making them think that they found a traitor on their first go. But no, you absolutely did not do that. I don't think anybody has ever gotten a traitor out at the first round table, ever.
No. I feel like someone's going to be like, yes, they have.
I really don't think they have.
I don't remember.
I think that's pretty much impossible.
That would be pure luck. Pure luck, not because they had an actual good clue.
No, yeah, it would be dumb luck. And the closest that they ever came was, I think, Dan. Dan got voted out pretty quick.
Dan had heat for a couple of weeks before he finally got voted out.
It was pretty quick, though. I mean, to find a traitor, it was pretty quick.
After the vote, it's time to get rid of these shields, to give them out to people. So again, Boston Rob, Derek, and Wes all have a shield that they can each give to somebody in the game.
I guess it's a good thing they didn't give them out beforehand, because I think that was at one point Wes said that he was going to give his shield to Wells. So it's a good thing they waited until after the round table to distribute the shields.
I kind of wish that the shields also worked at the round table.
That would be an interesting way to play it. And then that way, right after the challenge, then you're protected from roundtable discussion too.
Yeah, I just think that would be fun for them to incorporate at some point.
So that could be interesting.
But instead, they only work on protecting you from being murdered from the traitors. Now, that means Boston Rob knows he's a traitor. He hasn't joined them in the turret yet, but he's going to for this next murder. So whoever he's giving this shield to, he already knows. He knows that he has given it to them, so he can tell everyone, don't murder that guy, because if you do that, then they don't go home. You just waste a traitor murder.
See, what was interesting here is now you have, anytime there's this opportunity, because they're giving them out in secret too. So they are handing out the shields directly to the person who they are protecting.
Rob gives his to Tony.
And Rob doesn't know who are faithfuls and who are traitors. So that was an interesting thing too, was he could have potentially given a shield to someone who was a traitor if they were up for grabs like that.
That's true. They all could have given one to a traitor. He would have found out.
He would have found
once
out
he got
eventually.
to the turret.
Yes, but he was in the weirdest spot for that. My thing is with them secretly giving this, and that's information that you and the other person know. This is one of those opportunities where you could double bluff, especially with Rob. He is the subset of the subset who knows. He's a traitor who has given a shield to someone. So you could give a shield to someone and then pick that person for murder, even though you know that it's not going to work, and then play dumb like you had no idea that that person was protected. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. And then that eliminates you as a suspect for being a traitor, because why would I do that? I wasted my shield on you.
That's actually like a good idea for him, because I would still suspect that he came into the game as a traitor.
Yeah, me too. And I think that's why they had to add 3 people instead of just Boston Rob, because the entire group would have very quickly turned on him and just said, hey, we didn't want you to play the game anyway, so we're going to banish you on this next roundtable as soon as we get a chance.
There are 2 more shields to give out. Derek gives his to Dylan Efron, and then Wes gives his to Jeremy.
And Wes is going with the click strategy here because Jeremy is part of the survivor group, and he's seeing they seem to be on the same page. They all voted for the same person at the round table. He's trying to find the people that he can align with where they get it. They know how this stuff works.
He doesn't have anyone else here from the challenge, I don't think.
I don't think so. Not this season.
Yeah, so you got to find a group to assimilate yourself into. That's apparently where he's trying to go.
So it's the end of the night, and it's time for Rob's intro to the turret.
But the other 3 don't know it yet. Danielle, Carolyn, and Bob the Drag Queen, they're all up there ready to start voting on who they're going to get out next. And they get a knock at the door, which is a little odd, but sometimes Alan knocks on the door and he comes back in and he tells them a twist. But instead, someone else walks in a robe. So it's another traitor.
It's Broccoli Rob. They had no idea, but boy, are they glad to see him.
Not really. Not all of them are.
Not all of them.
Danielle did not look happy.
Danielle didn't look happy, but then she was trying to say how excited she was that he's at least on her team. And it's like, I don't think you actually feel like that. I think you're still upset that he's here.
I think that she's upset because she feels like he's going to monopolize the conversation around who they're going to eliminate.
See, that's what's interesting is the dynamic that's revealed in this conversation now, because this is the second turret meeting and this is the first one that Rob's been a part of. He had determined that Bob the Drag Queen actually has a lot of the pull in this conversation and how things are going as far as the decisions around the murders and the general strategy that the traitors seem to be going in, even though they're kind of flying blind. They're firing from the hip. They do not have a strategy, and they are outright telling him that at this point. We have no idea what we're doing. We are just doing chaotic things to be chaotic.
He ends up telling them everyone who has a shield because
he knows.
He knows. They came back and told him.
Well, yeah, and it's
Wes and Derek told him who they gave their shields to.
The gamer buddies stuck together and they let him know who they are. See, if I was one of the other guys, because Wes and Derek were both suspicious of the other 2. They figure there's 3 of us that joined. One of us has to be a traitor. So they're no dummies. They kind of know something's going on here. And if there's anybody that's going to turn on you, it's definitely one of these 3 guys. So they knew something was up. I feel like that would have been a great opportunity for kind of a Bergie bluff, a Bergie block.
That's what they needed.
So
you needed to lie and tell them that someone else had it and not one of them.
Yes, you needed to tell Rob. You needed to tell Boston Rob that you gave your shield to someone else, and then they would go after someone else. And then that's insider information that you know that you told Rob. So then how would he know? That would be interesting.
They're not playing strategically enough yet. They'll get there.
I mean,
the group's too big still.
I think they knew enough to be suspicious, but then they didn't think through that play. I don't know why they were being so honest. If they're trying to build trust out the gate for it, I mean, you have to know that these people are going to turn on you. That's the nature of the game.
They might have felt like going into the first round table where they could be voted for, that they needed to stay together as a block, because otherwise they're going to pick one of them off.
Yeah, and I think that's why Wes was trying to align with the Survivor group, so then that way he could already have kind of a little alliance that's built out of that, so he could shift from his 3-person group up to a 5-person group.
The first genius idea we get is from Carolyn. She's thinking, let's get rid of Brittany. But that's kind of a problem because Danielle and Brittany have history from Big Brother, and people would automatically assume that Danielle was a traitor if that happened.
And the look on Carolyn's face was, yeah, I think that's why I want to do it. But she wasn't hiding it very well. So I don't know if that was a strategy play for her where she was trying to pin something on Danielle.
See if she was dumb enough to go along with it. I mean, she did come up with getting rid of Dorinda. So
I mean,
it had the potential.
If we're throwing out ideas, I'm going to throw out what'll work best for me, which would be throwing you under the bus.
Then Bob the drag queen suggests we could get rid of another housewife.
And I mean, I understand it from the who would ever suspect this, but then this is chaos for the sake of chaos. And that's not going to help anything.
It's going to make the housewives more paranoid.
It will, but then they're not the ones who are going accusatory that much. That's not your vocal group. You had a vocal housewife. You murdered her last night.
I don't know. Robin's starting to really get opinions in this episode.
A little bit, yeah. And then I think that was where they were trying to decide as traitors, well, do we want to continue on with a strategy or do we want to continue with chaos? And they decided chaos. That's the way we're going. So it's going to be another housewife.
But we don't know who until we get to breakfast. And we're watching them all walk in one by one. It's taken a long time. There's a lot of housewives still missing at the end. And lo and behold, they eliminated Ayan from Housewives of Dubai.
Oh, this was the breakfast where Danielle was running her mouth. She was talking nonstop. Her strategies, her theories.
She's crying at the table when people are getting eliminated and they're not showing up. It's a little much. I don't know how she played Big Brother, but if that is a departure from her past behavior, it's going to be suspicious. And people are starting to pick up on it. Boston Rob is getting very uncomfortable because this is his first breakfast as a traitor. And it's the first time that he's been part of eliminating somebody. And he's trying to play it cool and looking around like, what is she doing? She's drawing so much attention to herself.
She's saying so many things. She's suspecting that Bob the drag queen is the one who's been murdered. And she has all these reasons and theories about why that is. And Boston Rob is like, oh my God, shut up. You are gonna blow this. You're just digging your own grave over there.
And she kind of does, because after they leave the breakfast room, Jeremy pulls Carolyn aside, which unfortunately he picked the wrong person to talk to, and mentions, you should really keep an eye on Danielle. I've got my eye on her. There's something not right there.
Something's off a little bit.
But Carolyn does not go back and tell the other traitors this information.
She's holding on to that. Well, technically, it wasn't an accusation. It was a suspicion, which how many of those? I know, but how many of those discussions come up on a regular basis? And honestly, if you've seen Danielle acting that way at breakfast when she hasn't been warned, do you know how weird and paranoid she would get around Jeremy if you said, hey, he thinks you're a traitor?
Maybe it is better to just not say anything.
Don't say anything to Danielle. She's going to blow it.
The next mission that they have is really weird. They pull up and it's like a funhouse carnival type situation. And people are getting worried that there are clowns involved. Carolyn's excited about the clowns.
It is a carnival. Somebody needs to notify Mariah Plath. We didn't hear the song, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I guess.
Unfortunately for her, I think she could have used the payday.
A couple of Spotify streams would have helped.
It was very hard to understand the directions of this challenge. They're going to be given a balloon that is worth $2,000. They're going to have to walk.
Well, the balloon's not. It's figuratively. It's symbolically.
Towards the prize.
Symbolically
bucket.
worth, yes, prize money.
They have to then approach a set of doors.
You enter a room.
And you have to pick a door.
4 doors.
Now, you have to walk through that door that you've picked. And either you can get through.
Yeah, if you can. Because
if it's the correct door.
There can be wrong doors. 3 of the doors are wrong. 1 of the doors is correct. If the door is wrong, a clown will try to stab you. Or, I mean, at least your balloon.
The balloon.
Yeah. Probably. It should stab the balloon.
It was really scary. It was like an ice pick they were popping the balloon with.
I mean, and the way that people were flinching and recoiling, I was like, don't move the balloon while they're swinging a ice pick at you.
I hated it. It had to be fake. Do you think it was a rubber ice pick?
I don't know.
It was just something, just pop the balloon. I don't know. I hope it wasn't real.
It
was
doesn't need
terrifying.
to be that fine of a point, I guess. But yeah, so you enter the room. There's 4 doors. Why? So the communication challenge is what is happening here, because they're saying you need to describe these doors. People will be able to hear you in the room making your decision. So everybody else is outside. So you need to convey which door you're attempting to open, because then by process of elimination, the rest of the teams outside will be able to determine which doors have been tried, and then that will increase their chances of getting the correct door.
Yeah, theoretically.
In theory.
Again, I feel like it was really hard to explain how this whole thing was supposed to work. I feel like that was part of the problem.
I feel like there were additional rules where they couldn't say door 1, 2, 3, and 4.
It seemed like it, because that would be the go-to thing, is when you walk in and you look at the doors, you would say, I'm going to open door 1.
From left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm trying door number 1. And that's all you would need to say, and you would open that door, and then people would know, okay, don't do the left door. Try some of the other ones. If there were no rules against that, and we didn't land at that as a solution, I'm going to lose my fucking mind.
I wish they would have told us. Instead, so first of all, you get paired up into teams of 2, just based on whoever you happen to be standing next to. They're heading in, and Nikki and Tony are going first. That's a whole argument over who is going to be the first team in.
That is, well, because the gamers know your odds of going first and succeeding very, very low. So they don't want to be responsible for the failures. But that's kind of part of the process. It is a process of elimination. The thing is, though, you have to make sure that the teams outside know which door you are actually trying.
Otherwise, that is no helpful data for them.
It's a waste of a turn.
Right.
Not even.
They're going in blind, essentially, the next
time. It's worse than going in late or going in first and getting it wrong. It's going in first and then providing no additional information.
I don't think we mentioned, too, if you get through at the end, you're going to win a shield. So that's why the gamers are also incentivized to wait a little longer, get more information about how to navigate the funhouse, and then go through.
In theory, because yes, we start with Nikki and Tony after some persuasion, and they do decide to go first because Biggest Loser Bob was kind of twisting the screws on Tony and challenging him to go first and step up for this. So they do go first, but Tony is, I don't know, is he colorblind? He's bad under pressure, describing things verbally that he's seeing in front of him. He's trying to describe patterns, colors, shapes.
Each of the doors has a unique pattern on it, but they're very similar in that, like, 3 of the doors had diamond shapes on them. So if you were just going to say it's got diamonds on it, that's not going to help when the next set of people walk in. And that's pretty much the route that they take.
So we get a couple. The first few are wrong right out the gate. And so by process of elimination, we should be getting close to a pretty sure thing. So that's when Biggest Loser Bob goes in, because we've had 3 incorrect answers.
And there are only 4 doors in the first room.
So we should be getting this one. But then they try a door that's already been tried. And everybody outside is going, no!
They literally can't remember the clues that they've been given.
No! So they're cracking under pressure, and they're picking a door that's already been picked. So they haven't made it out of room 1 yet, and we have 4 sets of teams who have been eliminated.
There's just clown after clown after clown, popping balloon after balloon after balloon. We get down to the last team that we have standing, Sarah and Wes. They haven't gone through yet.
And they have to get through 2 rooms. One of them is a 50-50 shot because they're pretty sure they know the 2 doors that don't work. So it's down to one or the other. So that's a 50-50. But then they have to go through and then pick from another set of 4 blindly that they have no idea.
Because no one else has made it that far.
So they make it through by some miracle. They hit the 50-50 shot. and they're able to go into the last room, but immediately met with a clown.
So no money, no shields.
What a waste of time.
Yeah, what an excellent day. I am worried that at the end of this game, there's going to be like $150,000 to win.
$25,000.
Yeah.
Actually, you owe us money.
I feel like this group is not going to be very good at the challenges where they have to win things.
Oh, man. I hope they do the one where they have to roll all the big, huge...
The heavy barrels.
Yeah, the barrels, the kegs of stuff. That's a good one.
The one where Kate Chastain kept putting them down because they were heavy.
Not putting them down. She was deliberately throwing them off the trail so that way she wouldn't have to go back and pick them up.
Now it's time to head back to the castle, and Jeremy is in the car. Jeremy, sorry. And Jeremy brings up Danielle's name in the car as a possible traitor. Now, he's not the first person who has mentioned her name. He's very suspicious of her at this point, and his big mistake is that Bob the drag queen is also in this vehicle.
So Bob the drag queen is immediately going to let Danielle know, and Carolyn is able to confirm, yep, Jeremy brought up that concern with me this morning as well. He has had suspicion, and it's only grown.
That's the first person whose name's gotten thrown out, and somebody went back and told the person that everyone's talking about them. The second, Dylan Efron, is becoming suspicious of Bob the drag queen. And he tells this to Jeremy, who then goes back and rats Dylan out to Bob.
So Bob then goes into the kitchen and fires off about that. So there's just everybody's getting upset. Everybody's going around and telling people who suspects whom, and it's going around in circles. We also have another group, an alliance that's been formed, the Bambis.
The Bambi Alliance, which they claim is because they all have big eyes.
Those big doe eyes. It's Gabby, Nikki, and Chriselle, which... out of a jury of your peers, those are probably the three scariest that I would have to face, I think, in terms of the faithfuls.
Is Gabby trying to play up being dumb? I can't tell.
Is that her brand?
I'm just not sure. I don't know that I would want my alliance named after a baby deer. They're not really known for being the most smartest and adept.
Most smartest?
The most smartest. Take a picture of that.
Yeah, get a picture of that.
They're targeting Tony. They've decided something is up with him.
Yeah. Do you want to know what it is? He's the exact opposite of their group.
That's true.
They have formed a group, the Bambis, and Tony is in direct opposition of that. He's a man. He is threatening. He is vocal, and he's out to play the game. They don't even understand the game. They're just kind of here, walking around, figuring things out. Clowns are popping balloons. They're scared. They're terrified.
They're just happy that the three of them agree on something.
So let's roll with that. 3 votes is better than just one singular vote. So yeah, we have a team now too.
We're going into the round table in a real strong position right now, aren't we?
So Dylan starts the conversation.
Dylan desperately wants to avenge Wells.
Well, and I think he's then pointing out who was the most vocal about Wells, and it was Bob the drag queen and Robin. So he's kind of lumping them together because they were very vocal, and Wells was faithful.
I was disappointed that the table didn't latch onto Robin a little bit more.
I know, they keep missing it.
I mean, even though she's not a traitor,
they don't assume she's a threat.
There's such an opportunity there. You keep saying you think it's a housewife. You've been trying to plant that seed, or at least Danielle has. And here's a housewife getting thrown out here next to Bob the drag queen, who most of the other group doesn't think at all is a traitor. And nobody is looking more at Robin.
That's the worst part for me too, is because everybody this early who's convinced, no, there's no way this person is a traitor. Those are absolutely the people who are traitors.
Exactly.
So you have to always suspect that people are the traitors, because nobody makes that realization. They convince themselves early on in the game that no, these people that I know and trust, there's no way that they would be traitors.
I really like this person. They can't be a traitor.
And they're so nice. They always agree with everything I say. And it's just...
They make me feel good.
They make me personally feel good. And then about halfway through the game, they realize, we've only been voting out people who are faithful. We need to start looking at the people who we least suspect. And that's when they start getting close or actually start picking traitors. And then it starts working out from there. But then it takes everybody about half the game to get to that point. The Bambis never get to that point.
No, they do in this
I
episode.
don't
They
think
point
so.
the finger at Tony.
Well,
Gabby speaks up and says, I think it's Tony.
yeah, but Tony's a faithful, so swing and a miss. So close,
At
yet
least
so far.
They're participating. Did they get an award for that?
No, there's no participation trophies in the Traitors.
Tony knows that since his name's gotten thrown out, he has to now accuse somebody. And so he turns to Bob Harper, which is just a really bizarre decision, in my opinion. Bob hasn't really made waves. Why are you trying to accuse someone who seems to be pretty well liked by the group, hasn't really done much of anything to attract suspicion, and you're making yourself look even more suspicious by pointing the finger at him?
I don't know why he shifted away from Robin. He had so many better points where he was saying that Dylan told Robin and Ian last night what his suspicions were, and then Ian was murdered.
That seemed like a good point. And again, Robin's name has already been thrown out at this table by somebody else.
Stick with this. Like, you have to focus in and go in on it, because then I think that was some of the advice that was being given to him beforehand. Because I think Wes was talking with him in the kitchen, and Dylan was trying to decide, I don't know, it's either this person or that person. It was between Bob the Drag Queen or Robin, and I think I'm just going to bring them both up and see what sticks. And Wes was like, don't do that. If you're going to take a shot, take a shot. You got to hit.
He didn't listen.
He didn't do that. He started freaking out, and he started throwing around a bunch of other names.
That's a problem because everyone needs to be like funneled towards a specific person, or the conversation just shoots out in 500 different directions, which is kind of what ended up happening. Then Robin has the nerve to speak up and say something, even though there are multiple accusations or things that have been pointed out that seem to add up as to why it could theoretically be her who's a traitor. She says it would make perfect sense for Alan to pick Tony as a traitor.
Because Alan needs to pick someone who can handle it, and Tony could definitely handle it, which Dylan then counters by that same criteria that you have explained, Robin. Then Bob the Drag Queen would be perfect as a traitor as well. And then everybody gets upset by that. Because Bob has to then fire back, squash that down. He gives Dylan a drag name of Misguided.
It was amazing.
Which was great. But this is where stuff starts shifting to Tony. It's piling up on Tony now. But the logic there, that's what Dylan was trying to punch holes in.
It's flawed.
It's very flawed. It's incredibly biased. And it's just going off of everybody's whims. The only person who brings validity to this is Boston Rob, the man who just handed Tony a shield less than 24 hours ago to protect him from murder.
Well, he's been waiting for an opening. He has to protect Bob the Drag Queen. And Bob's name's got brought up. So we're going to double down on Tony. If people think it's Tony, good. You're going to go home. So he mentions that he gave Tony this shield and that Tony pretty much just hasn't spoken to him since then. And he thinks that's weird.
That's all. So it's not even an accusation.
No.
Because then that's what Tony was trying to
odd.
say. Do you think I'm a traitor? And he's like, I don't know. I'm not sure. But I'm just saying that is strange. So he's just casting suspicion, not making an accusation, but already confirming what a lot of people who are sitting around the table were pretty much planning to do anyway. So he solidifies that. They take it to a vote. I'm sorry, Bob the Drag Queen voting for Boniver? That was wild.
It was weird. I know.
Out of left field.
Well, and he wasn't the only one who voted for him.
I think in this round table, I think
a couple of people did, didn't they?
Oh, did they? No, in the first one, there were a few votes. So I don't know if Bob was the only one who voted for Ivar this time.
I thought someone else did.
Maybe.
There's like someone else who still finds him wildly suspicious.
Or they're just throwing away the... Oh, no, somebody had voted for Tom.
Yeah, Chriselle. She
Chriselle.
hates him.
Yeah. Somebody started the vote, whatever. So obviously the vote is an overwhelming majority of Tony. And so Tony is up and bids farewell to everyone. and tells Boston Rob that he's a sellout.
Yeah, people didn't really put much credence into that. They thought that it was awkward for him to say that on the way out, but usually when someone addresses someone directly as they're leaving the game, it breeds suspicion.
Yeah, I mean, normally, but not with this group.
No,
So
it's true. This is a unique group.
partially,
that we're seeing.
but then also with Tony being a faithful, though, he doesn't know who the traitors are because he would have voted for them anyway. So just by saying that to Rob, that's not anything definitive either. Suspicious, maybe a little bit. If I was Trishelle from last season, I would jot it down in my journal.
Her notebook.
In her notebook, and remember.
Well, you would think that's the end of the episode, but it's not.
I mean, everybody's getting up from the round table. Rob tries to defend himself as best he can because then he's trying to dismiss it. Look, I'm just saying I brought up what I brought up. I didn't make an accusation. I wasn't sure. I was just pointing out and backing up. Everybody else voted for him. I didn't vote for him by myself here. This was a group decision. Everybody thought Tony. It wasn't Tony.
And we go straight from this into pulling the traitors aside because they're going to need to select 3 people for a potential murder. And they have to do it in plain sight, which is a challenge that they've done before on the show.
These are always great.
So they're not going to get to go to the turret where they get to have a private conversation while everyone else is in their rooms. Instead, they're going to have to somehow all get together while the group is in the castle in like the common areas. And that's how they're going to have to come together to make their decision. And usually the traitors don't want to be seen together. That adds a complication to things.
So the instructions that they've received is they have to go to the wine cellar, which is over by the bar. It's the secret bookshelf that opens up and is in the corner there. They have to write down 3 names on a short list for murder on a specific scroll in that library and then vacate the premises without being discovered.
3 of them managed to get there pretty easily, which is impressive because after the round table, everyone kind of debriefs and they start having conversations about what they thought was weird, who they think it could be for the next time, how the whole series of events went down. Bob the drag queen, Boston Rob, and Danielle all managed to get back to the room that they need to be in.
Carolyn is still
struggling.
She's running around, but this kind of plays in. This is the character that she's established. She just bounces from room to room in frantic panic.
I guess, but it's extra strange tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it seems out of the ordinary.
Because she is actually trying to find somebody.
But then you can't look like you're looking for specific people because you don't want to have to tell people you're looking for people. So Danielle was actually playing that off pretty well. When she was walking into rooms to look for people, she would walk into a room and say, there's too many people in here. But in actuality, there's none of the people that she's looking for in this room. So she's getting out of there.
I think there's a rule on this show as to how many people can be in a room together when they're filming.
We have heard that. Yeah, where they'll try and break things up or...
They want you dispersed.
Yeah.
Not all together.
Right.
So she could be using that as an excuse to leave a room.
That's a great excuse to leave a room because that's just part of the rules. Carolyn does end up finding them, but it took a minute. And Robin and Derek actually came really close to catching them. They were over by the bar or they were going over by the bar. I think Robin was at the bar while there were things being discussed in the secret room.
On the other side of the wall.
On the other side of the wall, but it very well could have been editing where they just placed her so close to a lot of that because then they had Derek who was pacing in the hallway, who was kind of close, and then made it look like somebody was knocking at the door to enter into the secret room. And oh, it was Carolyn. She finally made her way in there.
I thought that they were going to decide on the names without her.
I thought so too. And honestly, at that point,
she's MIA.
Have that be your alibi. I wasn't involved in that decision.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't me.
Well, unfortunately, she does make it back in time.
Maybe.
Fortunately, I don't know.
I guess that's where it gets weird because then it's like, okay, were there other rules that were instituted where you all had to be in that room to make that decision? You all had to decide on that and write it out. So then that's why she did feel compelled to go to that room then? She had to?
Didn't want to be left out.
I think that's dumb. If anything, you should have been at the bar and you should have been waiting.
Been the lookout.
If anyone is coming in, because now we run into a whole other issue because not only was Robin very close, she was at the bar at one point when the discussion was taking place. And they are getting animated. They're speaking a little bit louder. You might hear something through the wall, potentially. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. Derek, I think that was just a misguided thing or a suspense building thing for when Carolyn was actually coming into the room. Gabby ends up inadvertently walking in on this situation while they're trying to conclude their business, their secret agenda that's happened
her little
here.
Bambi shaky legs.
and
she's hearing things, or she looks like she hears something, or she sees something.
We're left on a cliffhanger here, so we're not entirely sure what she saw or what she heard, but I think she was pretty close to seeing somebody come out of that bookshelf, out of that bookcase after the deed has been done.
Well, we're going to have to wait till next week to find out who the 3 names are and if Gabby saw anybody.
Here's the real question. How would you get out of that situation? So if you opened the bookshelf, if you were one of the 4 traitors who was inside and you were making that decision and Gabby is standing in the doorway, what would you do?
Well, hopefully it was Carolyn so she could say she got lost.
Oh, man. Yeah, you need to have Carolyn be the first one out and say, I was looking all over for everyone, but I can't find anybody. Where is everybody? Mm-hmm. And then have her guide you away. So then that way everybody else can run out of there. Because I don't think Gabby would be sharp enough to say, are you sure? And then go look and see, is anybody else in that room?
No, and they would be very stupid to all come out at the same time.
I feel like that's close to what they're doing. I feel like they're going to try and do that. Because Bob was trying to play it off like he was talking loud so that people could hear them. And Rob is like, oh my God, shut up. What are you doing? Like, no, we're in here. We're going to get busted.
I think it's going to be a real problem if Bob the drag queen and Danielle get seen in the same room. I don't know that anyone's really suspicious of Carolyn. And Boston Rob, they could very quickly turn on.
Oh, very quickly. Everybody's just looking for an excuse to turn on Boston Rob.
But Bob and Danielle should be covering all their bases right now.
Bob is on thin ice.
Yeah. Well, that is it until next week. And we will have 1 episode to cover instead of 3. So it won't be quite the whirlwind that we had this time.
Correct. Yeah, it'll be more at a normal pace. We'll be able to kind of dive into things and glean more insight from that as needed.
We hope that you will decide to join us for the rest of the season of The Traitors. There are 11 episodes in total.
And if you like what you're hearing on the podcast here, be sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a review wherever you're listening. It always helps the pod.
You can follow us on TikTok for now.
For now, at least for another couple days.
At Surviving Pod or on YouTube. And we'll figure out at some point where else you'll be able to find us.
Might be heading for greener pastures and bluer skies somewhere.
Thanks for listening. See you next time.